G'day everyone, back with another tent review, all thanks to trailhiker.com.au, so check them out. And this time I reviewed the TERRA Laser Compact All Season 2. So it's a two-person tent, and as you can see, this thing is bloody tiny, and I didn't pack it up very well, so sorry about that, Jay. When I send this back, it's probably going to be a little bit messier than when you sent it down, but big thanks for letting me review it. And I'll tell you what guys, this tent could be and should be probably on your radar if you're looking for a new ultralight backpacking tent. So I've just got my phone here with a few notes. Last night I took it out and gave it a test run. Where we were camping we had -2, and all in all I was very impressed with this thing. It was pretty quick and easy to set up. And I'm just going to run through my pros and cons list. So I'm going to start off with the pros. First pro is straight away going to be the size, or the lack of, for this thing. The dimensions in its packed size here are 30 centimeters by 16 centimeters. Very, very small, and it only weighs 1.8 kilos, which is super light for a 4-season tent. The second pro is the inner and the fly is already set up. So if you buy this tent and do what I did and don't set it up out in the backyard and just take it straight into the field. Admittedly, it wasn't raining, but if it was raining, when you set this thing up, the fly's already attached. There's no setting up the inner of the tent and then putting the fly over the top. There is none of that. This has already got that covered. You just chuck your pole in and set it up straight away. I did it in the dark, and it probably took me maybe 3 minutes to set this thing up. Super impressed by that. The third pro that I found was minimal condensation. So I stayed in this with my dog, Remy, and all in all, I was extremely impressed. We had a super cold night and then really strong sunlight hitting it the next morning, and there was hardly any condensation. There was a little bit on the underside of the fly, but on the inner part of the tent, there was nothing. It was bone dry, and I didn't get wet inside the tent at all. Another pro that I found, on both sides of the doors, they've got little magnet snaps. So when you zip open your door, the magnets will snap back in. So you can leave it unzipped and you can sort of open or close the door as you wish. I really liked that. They snapped into place really nicely. It wasn't too loud, but it was just a nice feature, something I haven't seen on a backpacking tent myself before. Next pro is the color. It's more of an earthy green. It's a darker green color. It's not super bright. If you're backpack hunting, sometimes you don't want to stand out to the crowd. Sometimes you don't want to be, having a bright orange tent. And this here, pretty dark colored green, sort of blends into the bush. And if you're trying not to give away your hunting spots or your backpacking spots, things like that, this is a great colored tent. Could be a con in some aspects in terms of if you're trying to find it, but it did have reflective guidelines where you were staked them out, so you could still find the tent relatively easy. But in daylight hours, I found it to be a pro having that earthy color and not giving away a hunting spot. And the last pro I jotted down was the dual door and dual vestibule. So for such a lightweight tent and such a small compact size, it seemed like it had a fair bit of room, vestibule wise and internally. It is a two-person tent. It would be a very tight squeeze, obviously with 2 people in there like most of them are, but all things considering, if you were after a 4-season lightweight backpacking tent, I think this here is a real winner. Now, as always, there's always a cons list, because I don't think there's such thing as a perfect product. There's always going to be a con. And the first con, and I noticed it immediately, was this tent isn't freestanding. So when I set it up, you've got one big main pole and then 2 short poles, but even when deploying those poles, it's not freestanding. The only thing that makes it freestanding is the pegs, which I kind of understand because it's so light that's the only way to go, but personally I really like freestanding tents because you can set it up, and if you're not quite happy with it, you can move it around. With something like this, it's a little bit more difficult. The second con is basically moving on from the last one. The pegs, even though they're lightweight and they're quite beefy, in hard ground I think they would bend. It's full credit, these ones probably held up better than I thought they would, and probably held up better than most pegs I use, but just something I thought I would mention. I did bend a couple, but we were camping on the side of an old sort of 4x4 track, and yeah, it was pretty hard ground, probably a few rocks in underneath there, and that's probably why they bent up a little bit. But all in all, wasn't too bad, but definitely wish it was freestanding. Aside from those two cons, the only other con that I found was packing it up. Setting up I found very easy, and packing it up was super easy as well, but fitting it into this little bag took me 2 goes. So the first time I rolled it up, and it's probably more that I'm not used to it, the first time I rolled up the tent too long, and I tried to put it in the bag, but it was too long, so I had to put it back on the ground and basically fold it up so it was shorter in length. Then I rolled it, then I got it to fit in pretty well. So I'm going to call it a con, but all in all, honestly, I'm pretty bloody impressed. So aside from those 3 cons, I genuinely like this tent, and I'll tell you what, if tomorrow I busted the Kuyu Mountain Star, I had to buy another tent, this here would be very, very high on my looking at buying list. I don't think you can really beat it for the size and weight and its performance. I would be happy taking this to New Zealand and, you know, deep into the Victorian high country backpacking and places like that. I tested it in -2 and I was very, very impressed. So I think that's going to wrap it up. If you guys are interested in checking out this tent, go to trailhiker.com.au. I'd really appreciate it if you went and looked at that website instead of just Googling it, because Jay's given me the opportunity to test this tent out and do this review. So jump on there. If you buy it off their website, you get a complimentary titanium cooking grill. It's valued at like $50. This also has a lifetime warranty. If you have any issues, hit up Jay and he'll help you out. Definitely support an Aussie website like Trail Hiker. And yeah, thanks heaps, man, for letting me do this review. Really, really cool tent. If I ever bust my Kuyu, I'll be probably getting one of these.